Rule for engagement number 3, learn from those who have loved well and resisted powerfully. So when I look at Trump and I look at his rhetoric and the things he says and the things he says he wants, I hear and see authoritarianism, a casual attitude towards the dehumanization and possibly future oppression of the other, and a just like naked and obvious just worship of raw power. Here's the thing though, none of these things are new. Human history is littered with dictators and kings and pharaohs and authoritarians of all shapes, sizes, and types. And basically, since the invention of writing, humans from across time and place and language and culture have loved well, resisted power, and left us sagely wisdom in the form of writing and more recently videos, podcasts, etc. We need to seek out these people and learn from them, people both living and dead. If there's one thing that Trump and a lot of the people he surrounds himself with seem to hate, it's humility, openness, and curiosity. And if I'm serious about resisting what I think is about to happen, I'm going to need to have the humility to say, I don't know how to do this, let me learn. So let me just offer a few like kind of sub points to explain what I mean. Even though I've kind of spent some time kind of trashing modern digital media, for me, podcasts, YouTube, and to a lesser extent, social media has allowed me to find some really, really, really powerful, intelligent, thoughtful, ethically and morally admirable voices that have given me a lot of strength and I would even say spiritual nourishment. Let me just give you an example. I'm obsessed with this podcast called The Bible for Normal People. The Bible for Normal People is basically hosted by two people that are sort of like me. They at one point in their life were indoctrinated into kind of fundamentalist Christianity. At some point realized that a lot of it didn't make sense and a lot of it was problematic. Looked to academia and kind of graduate level education to try to help them sort out some of their questions. And on a regular basis, put out podcasts where they kind of marry their personal journeys with their academic understanding and also doing this in a larger community with other people who are on similar wavelengths. I can't tell you how meaningful that podcast is to me. And it's just one of many kind of touch points in my life where I can go to people who actually know what they're talking about and can demonstrate they know what they're talking about, but are doing so with relevance and with humanity and with an understanding that knowledge is only powerful if you can actually live it out and apply it. We need to learn from passionate and thoughtful, like intellectuals and academics, right? Who can help us understand the current moment and to put it in a context so it doesn't feel so chaotic and out of control. We need to learn from historians. Really good historians mind the past to help us understand what's happening now and give us wisdom and encouragement and insight into our present situation through the lens of the past. We should be learning from artists and creatives, playwrights, visual artists, musicians, filmmakers, because they help us express and capture and spark conversations about what's going on and also help us celebrate our victories and mourn our losses. Finally, we should learn from people in the margins. We should learn from people who have suffered deeply, but have come out of that experience of suffering either individually or collectively with an incredible wisdom and clear-eyed empathy. We have a really bad habit in America of just listening to the people who are powerful. In particular, middle and upper class suburban people tend to tell us what reality is and we tend to believe them. I used to think that way, and unfortunately, sometimes I still do. At some point in my life, however, I realized that marginalized people have more to teach me than I have to teach them. You know, people of color, women, incarcerated Americans, poor Americans. You know, in the environment I grew up in, I was told we need to tell those people how to live because we have the answers and they don't. And now I realize that's a lot more complicated than that. Learning to live and work and even thrive in the greatest country in America as a person that the greatest country in America looks down on and doesn't want can and often does bring an understanding and a perspective that the rest of us need to hear. For example, for 3 years, I worked inside of a prison. I started out teaching GED. I was teaching English and social studies. And about halfway through, I got promoted to the school supervisor. I basically got fired for doing my job, which is why I'm not there anymore, but that's another story for another day. The lessons that I learned there, I try to take with me everywhere I go. This was a maximum security men's facility. In other words, by maximum security, everybody that was in there for some kind of violent offense. Some of the guys I worked with were sex offenders. Some of them had murdered people, either intentionally or unintentionally. So you'd think that they wouldn't have very much to teach me. Absolutely false. I came home every day feeling humbled. Every day I worked there, I saw men of various ages, various races, working together to better themselves, encouraging each other when they were struggling, really like looking out for and loving each other and trying to build a little community and family. And all of this was taking place in the most horrifying, dehumanizing, vile places I have ever been in my life. And that is what, middle class and or just comfortable people miss out when they don't listen to people. I mean, another example is Black women. You know, I was raised in an environment where Black women were probably at the bottom of the social totem pole. You know, I was raised to view Black women as just, you know, just obnoxious welfare queens who wanted to have babies and live off the government. You know, here I am decades later, and I can say without hesitation that my life would not be the same were it not for the role that Black women have played. Both my personal life, you know, through friendships and through mentoring relationships and through, you know, my intimate, closest partnership, but also in my intellectual, I'd even say spiritual life. You know, authors and thinkers like, you know, Bell Hooks, Toni Morrison, Angela Davis, have become really, 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 really important to me. And to put this in context, you know, I think if you just look at American history, Black women have arguably suffered more from the history of white supremacy than almost any other demographic in this country. And at this point in my life, it's hardly surprising that members of this demographic who have suffered so much and are just generally looked down upon by American society have produced some of the most important just works of thought and spiritual encouragement and anti-authoritarian activism in all of American history. Now, to be clear, I don't want to like romanticize suffering. You know, we all suffer and suffering sucks and nobody should seek it out. But some of us suffer more greatly than others. Some of us experience extreme or intense suffering that most of us can't even comprehend. And if you go through that type of suffering, it either, you know, to be cliched, makes you bitter or makes you better. And the people whom have been made better and stronger and wiser from suffering have a lot to teach us.